I'm excited to present on how preambulatory children with neurodevelopmental disorders can make progress by walking in place. The objectives for today's presentation are to describe the theoretical and neuroplastic mechanisms behind infant treadmill protocols. We will be describing the available evidence on treadmill training in preambulatory children with NDD. I will be providing an overview on supported treadmill exercise program at Sacramento State Easter Seals, also known as STEPS, and then report on the demographic and developmental outcomes of the participants. So to learn a new task, we need to practice that task. So if you want to get better at tennis, you should play tennis versus ride a bike. And to get better, you need to perform multiple repetitions through practice for motor learning to occur. So for preambulatory children, the task-specific treadmill training provides that task-specific training component and the opportunity for a high repetition of steps to occur at a constant speed and duration, which can lead to neuroplastic changes. So the brain has this amazing ability to reorganize itself by forming new connections between neurons, and there's an increased potential for this cortical reorganization to occur in children under the age of 6, because there is this overabundance of neuronal cells and synaptic connections that undergo this pruning process through experience-dependent competition. Treadmill training sped up the walking onset for children with Down syndrome 90 days sooner compared to the control group. For preambulatory children with CP, treadmill training improved their gross motor skills, accelerated walking attainment, and decreased the amount of support that they needed to walk. And intensive treadmill training versus no treadmill training led to superior outcomes. Infants at moderate risk for delays, treadmill training did not improve the walking onset. However, it did improve the quality of steps that they took. So research suggests that a much higher dosage is needed for neuroplastic changes to occur, when in reality, children with NDD are receiving physical therapy 1 time a week at the most, and not all PTs have access to pediatric treadmills during these critical periods of development. So STEPS was created to bridge the gap and make treadmill training more accessible to our community. So STEPS is a free group-based treadmill training program that is at Sac State. Sessions occur 2 times per week for 14 weeks during the spring and fall semesters. There are 3 to 5 Doctor of Physical Therapy students per day, and they are supervised by a PT faculty member. And when I was a student at Sac State, I was fortunate enough myself to participate in 2 of the semesters of STEPS, which really kind of sparked my interest in pediatrics. Also, in addition to treadmill training, overground walking can be facilitated. Sessions are individualized to the child based on their functional capacity. And children are discharged from the program upon walking onset or the age of 5. So a child must be referred by a physical therapist to get into the program after they meet the inclusion criteria, which is being able to sit for 30 seconds and initiate taking 5 to 7 steps when supported. And then they also have to meet the exclusion criteria of no uncontrolled seizures or prior orthopedic surgeries where standing and walking is contraindicated. So the following outcome measures were administered pre and post of each semester. The gross motor function measure, Dimension D, tracked developmental changes in standing, whereas Dimension E tracked changes in walking. The Pediatric Evaluation of Disability Inventory measures the child's ability to participate in mobility per caregiver report. The Functional Mobility Scale is also a caregiver report measure that looks at the child's ability to walk 5, 50, and 500 meters. And the Time 10-meter walk test looks at the time it takes a child to walk 10 meters to calculate walking speed. And that research has shown all of these outcome measures to be reliable and valid. So the purpose of this study was to look back on 11 semesters of STEPS data to determine the effectiveness of the program. I'd like to mention that the STEPS program and retrospective analysis of data received IRB approval from Sac State. When looking at the participants, there were 70 children who participated over the 11 semesters. The mean age was 25.6 months. Children attended anywhere between 1 to 5 consecutive semesters. The average number per semester was 11 children, and the attendance was 77.3%. When looking at the distribution of diagnoses, 52 children were considered to have generalized hypotonia, and 18 had hypertonia. And I'd like to point out, if you were to combine Down syndrome, kind of the maroon red section of the chart, with other genetic syndromes, roughly half of the children were diagnosed with a genetic disorder. So STEPS had a lot of diversity to it. Most families traveled to STEPS within the county, and when you compare the racial distribution of STEPS to the county, which was reported by the United States Census Bureau for 2018, as these charts flip back and forth from one another, you can see that the results are very similar and almost spot on. So this is kind of looking at the end of each semester, pre and post data after the completion of the first semester of STEPS. So when you look at the graph on the left, you can see that there was improvement in standing abilities based on the GM-FM Dimension D score. And if you look at the chart on the right, that there was improvement in walking abilities based on the Dimension E scores. And both of these were statistically significant. When looking at the child's ability to walk the 10 meters, the time decreased, which is great. So when you calculated the walking speed, it overall increased. Based on the caregiver report from the PD, children were rated more independent at the end of STEPS, and that 73% of children were walking independently, and 27% were walking with a reverse walker at the end of the semester that they completed the program. So the receiver operating characteristic curve is a probability curve. We ran ROC curves on all of the outcome measures that were used, with the ultimate outcome was, did the child walk or not? So here is the reference line, and anything that falls above this line gives you an increased likelihood that the child will achieve independent walking. And the larger area under the curve, the better the ability the outcome measure had to predict the desirable outcome. So when looking at this, several outcome measures fell towards the top left corner, which were GM-FM Dimension D, E, and the PD. So as a clinician who refers children to the STEPS program, this is helpful information to determine which child is most likely to benefit from STEPS in the future. So parent surveys were provided at the end of each semester, and based on the scores, it was nice to see that the parents rated the program relatively high in all the areas. So to wrap things up, children who participated in STEPS improved their gross motor skills, increased their walking speed, and enhanced their independence. Higher pre-test GM-FM D, E, and PD scores were better predictors of walking compared to the other outcome measures that were used, and that the program was valued by the caregivers who participated. Some of the limitations to this project were this was a retrospective analysis of a program. There was no control group, therefore we could not control for the role of maturation that likely occurred due to development. And further research is needed to determine the cutoff scores of the outcome measures to kind of determine the optimal developmental level which the child should be admitted to the program. I would like to acknowledge the support, guidance, and assistance provided by my mentor, Katrine Mattern-Baxter. I'd like to thank the families and children who were in the program, and that I am thankful for this opportunity provided by the LEND program.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was created in 1998 with a promise to find cures for neurodevelopmental disorders. Every day, our physicians and researchers come closer to fulfilling that promise. Their groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other brain disorders are helping children achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website to find out more about current studies upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.